welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli, that's Bud Elliott, that's Danny Cannell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate. Lots to get to here on a Wednesday, including, as always, our big game breakdowns, and we got a lot of implications heading into conference championship Saturday. Count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams still with a path to end up in the college football playoff as we head into championship weekend. So what do we think are going to be the places where the matchups are decided? What are going to be the X factors? What are we paying attention to? We'll get into all that and more. Before we do our championship week breakdowns, I want to start with catching up on the coaching carousel, catching up on the latest from the transfer portal. And DK, I'll sort of let you steer it in which hire or reported hire you want to go. Now, we've got Syracuse officially naming Georgia defensive backs coach Fran Brown as its next head coach, the replacement for Dino Babers. We've got reports that Sean Lewis, the former Kent State head coach, most recently Colorado offensive coordinator, will be the pick for San Diego State. We've got a Bobby Petrino rumor report that it could happen at Arkansas. What stands out to you from the last 24 hours or so on the coaching carousel?
There's a bunch, man. It's been pretty wild. This thing is moving pretty quickly. The Sean Lewis to San Diego State, I think, is very interesting because if you think about what Brady Hoke was at San Diego State, it was run the football, play good defense, like smash mouth old school. And then you got Sean Lewis everywhere he's been, including Colorado. It's up tempo. It's spread them out. Let's throw it. Let's have some fun. So it's totally different direction, but I love it. I think it's a great hire. I know Bud had some thoughts on that I would tend to agree with. How many times do you see a coach get demoted during the season and then parlay it into another head coaching job? I think that's really what you see as far as people that know football are oh, it wasn't his fault. That wasn't Sean Lewis's fault. So good for him for getting it. Also, the other one too, Seth Luttrell to Oklahoma as their offensive coordinator, I think makes a ton of sense. And I think you should not see much drop off there. That was the other one that kind of caught my eye.
Was he an analyst somewhere this year?
At Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was already there. He was getting paid still from North Texas. So it's a pretty smooth transition. He's already got familiarity with the players, the recruiting, all of it. So he'll just step in. It really is like a seamless transition.
That's good for Jackson Arnold, I would imagine, as they sort of enter the next era. But what stands out to you over this last little bit?
I mean, I do take some signal from guys who do well at programs that it's basically just impossible to do well. Kent State has been the worst program in the country for almost the entire existence of the sport of football. And Sean Lewis took them to multiple bowl games. He beat 8 bowl teams when he was at Kent State. That sounds okay, whatever. They're in the MAC. Guys, that's basically an impossible job to win at. And he won there. I think he knows what he's doing. I think a lot of other coaches respect him. I thought Deion was totally going to try to screw him when they brought in Shermer as an analyst late in the summer. I had guys reach out to me oh, Deion's going to screw him over. He's going to be the fall guy for this. Because Shermer doesn't run an offense anywhere close to what Sean Lewis runs. It didn't really make any sense to bring in an analyst that doesn't agree with what you're trying to run. So yeah, I'm happy for Sean Lewis that he got out of there. I tweeted he'd get away from the BS at the time of the demotion, and he did.
What do we think is next before we get to some of the portal stuff? What do you have your eyes on in terms of, we still have Indiana open. We still have Oregon State. That was the other one. Sorry. Top of mind. Oregon State went ahead and went internal promotion. That make sense? Is that the way to go? That will be Bray, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Trent Bray. So Trent Bray was the defensive coordinator for Oregon State. He gets, elevated. He's now the full-time head coach. So thumbs up, makes sense. Any thoughts on that now that the Beavers have their next full-time head coach?
I think it makes sense in the sense that considering all the change that's coming to Oregon State and the uncertainty about the future, keeping some sort of continuity in that building is probably a good thing with Jonathan Smith leaving, because I mean, I'm sure a lot of Jonathan Smith's assistants outside of Bray will be going, but we'll see if Bray can keep any. There's a lot of buzz about guys hitting the portal, although I think Damian Martinez said yesterday that he's going to be sticking around, which is good. But it's just, I think with so much uncertainty, it'd be a tough time to really go into an open coaching search. It's probably best to promote somebody within that understands what's going on there.
Yeah, it looks like we also have the scheduling agreement has been finalized between Oregon State, Washington State, and those teams in the Mountain West. So
it's like a Notre Dame ACC situation.
Yeah. So I guess they'll be taking all of their quarterbacks from the Mountain West as well.
I like it as well. Don't you? I mean, it's a safe, like probably budget friendly hire that is worth taking this risk to see if it works. And if not, you can get off it pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's tough to sell in the marketplace to good candidates.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's
it's just a reality. It's not a knock on him. It's just a reality of the situation. And he might turn it into he might be the next Jonathan Smith.
He's also, he played there just like Jonathan Smith did. So,
so again, Trent Bray, that's another Power 5 job. So yeah, Indiana still open. Indiana. Don't worry, Indiana fans. I know your internet's working. I'm sorry I forgot you that one show on Saturday night, right? What are we looking for as the next big domino?
Indiana, by the way, Zach at the Indy Star reported that looks like they're going to have about $3 million in NIL, which is that is like a little bit more than some of the bottom half of the ACC teams have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so just to kind of put it in perspective. If that's a bump from where they were at, which is I assume it is because it's being reported in a positive manner, then I do think that Indiana was pretty far behind in NIL.
Shout out to Cubes. Liquidate your Mavericks
That's
ownership and then just start pumping into NIL at Indiana. That's all you could ask for.
Look at that.
So I'm saying Cuban gets $3.5 billion for the Mavs, and he puts 1% of that into Indiana's NIL operations. Says, "Here you go, boys. Let's get."
It changes their world.
Yeah,
totally flips everything upside down. Okay, so pivoting on to the latest transfer portal buzz, we've got a lot in terms of the quarterback situation. Tyler Van Dyke announces he will be entering the transfer portal. Will Howard from Kansas State announces he will be entering the transfer portal. EJ Warner will be leaving Temple. And as we are here talking right now, reports popping up that KJ Jefferson could be hitting the transfer portal as well. As we will be having some special portal focused shows once the portal opens. We want to see what the full landscape looks like before we really start nailing it down. But in this early stage of the process, again, only graduate transfers allowed to officially enter the portal right now. What's got your eye in terms of some of these moving pieces at the quarterback position?
So I really have to start at the top of a guy who a lot of schools were wondering, would he portal? And that was Michael Pratt. And in texting around with coaches yesterday, the feeling that they get is that he's likely to go pro. I'm not reporting that. I'm just letting you know, what other personnel guys who are they're preparing their board for guys who might jump in, might not. They think Pratt is probably going to go pro. I think Pratt would have been the top guy in the portal at quarterback had he stayed. So that sort of knocks down the top level of this. You have Howard from Kansas State jumping in. That makes a lot of sense because they have Avery Johnson there who will be already got playing time as a freshman. It's hard to hold on to two really good quarterbacks, both from a playing time perspective and from an NIL perspective, right? I mean, if you wanted to hold on to both those guys, you're having to devote a huge percentage of your NIL to just two players, both who play the same position and really can't play at the same time. So that makes sense for him to jump. I think he'll be fairly coveted out there. Tyler Van Dyke from Miami, when healthy and when in a system where they kind of scheme it up for him, he's a guy who I think people still have belief in because he can throw strikes and he does have a good arm. He just doesn't always throw it to the right guy. So can you get him back in the system? Like Lashley's staff, who's now at SMU, did a great job with him. I think they understood what he was and, importantly, what he was not, and they worked around it. And that's important. EJ Warner at Temple is a guy who I think will probably end up in the Power 5. He's been reported likely to go in. I think you can't go in officially if you're not a grad transfer. And I can't believe he'd be a grad transfer after just 3 semesters. But
he's a genius.
Yeah, that Kurt Warner grocery bagging, bootstraps energy.
And the last one, and the chat's already all over this, right? But there's a whole lot of people out there who think Riley Leonard's going to Notre Dame. Again, like, we have to kind of toe a weird line. I'm not reporting that Riley Leonard's going to Notre Dame. I don't know that he's going to Notre Dame. He's not even in the portal yet. I will tell you, there's a lot of people who work in college football, like not message boarders, who think that is going to happen.
If you can't beat them, join them.
Does that so if you're Notre Dame, and let's say the number is, say it's $1 million. I mean, I saw Cam Ward had $5 million offers, right? Top tier quarterback. And you just came off Sam Hartman, who had way more success at Wake than Riley Leonard did at Duke. Like, Riley Leonard's I love the kid. He's awesome. But he hasn't been the best passer. He's been an athlete. He's coming off a nasty, couple of injuries. Are you rushing to the table if you're a donor to get Riley Leonard?
I think it's just the price of poker, man. If you need a quarterback, you need a quarterback. Notre Dame will have a roster that they'll expect to compete for a spot in the 12-team playoff. You're going to need a QB to do that. Don't they open at Texas A&M? I kind of doubt anybody on their roster is a player who right now they have confidence in going down to College Station and winning there. So you probably need somebody. But I agree with you. Like, Riley Leonard has been a much better runner than he has been a thrower.
Isn't his sell the tools?
Yeah, upside.
Yeah, upside, tools, projection. That's what has everybody all hot and bothered, because, as you mentioned, DK, the statistical profile is not like, oh, wow, this is one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football. But, let's think about, where the rest of that Notre Dame offense is, what that identity is. Having somebody that can scoot a little bit, I mean, that could work really well behind a good offensive line with a really good run game, and be able to make some throws on the go. I could see Riley Leonard working out better than at a place where they're going to go ask him to throw the ball 45 times a game and just like drop back and sling it all over the yard. That it could be a good fit for Riley, and I would understand.
He also has elite sack avoidance numbers, and like the analytics guys will tell you that sack avoidance is actually a quarterback skill that is transferable. Like, it transfers it stays with you even if you transfer to another school, and it really stays with you even in the NFL. So, like, if you look at this, take a look at Florida this year, right? Richardson, when he was at UF, sack avoidance off the charts. It continued when he was with the Colts. I know he got hurt on a run play, but whatever. Like, Florida's sack numbers this year skyrocketed. Was the O-line that much worse, or was Graham Mertz just poor at sack avoidance? That seems to be a quarterback skill. So, like, Riley Leonard keeping plays alive with what I think should be an improved Notre Dame receiving core next year. I think I might be buying in. Like, they didn't stay healthy this year, but I'm
have a new wide receiver coach.
Yeah, they are.
Yesterday. Yeah,
I'm surprised Stuckey didn't work out there, man. I thought he was going to. I was wrong on that.
Robbie in the tailgate says, where does a potential Malik Murphy fit into all this?
Well, he's not in yet, right? But yeah.
No, he can't, right?
Miami?
Is he definitely
Why
like?
would you go to Miami if you're a quarterback?
Why? Justin Herbert was drafted high.
I don't know. No, I don't. Strike that from the record. Anywhere he wants to go is a good place to go.
You're going to give him the C+? I'll tell you what, it could be a great.
No, not that. Just listen, man. You know what? Maybe he goes there and he's the dude that fits. Maybe he's the guy that finally is the guy that breaks through. Because you're right, Danny. Justin Herbert did have a good career at Oregon. It just could have been better.
Right. It should have. I mean, you could argue it should have been better. Do you think Ohio State's in the market for a quarterback?
Yes.
Because I saw Malik. I don't have any. I don't know if I just saw it like rando. I don't think it was anything valid. But I saw Ohio State would kick the tires on Malik Murphy too.
Yeah, I don't think Ohio State's just going to be desperately looking for a QB, but I think they're going to be, if they can lure a top QB, I think they're 100% going to be in the market, because like Kyle McCord is not CJ Stroud or Justin Fields or Dwayne Haskins, but he's not entirely, he's not bad. He's just not in what I would consider the typical Ohio State QB. So if they can get somebody like a Malik Murphy who they feel can maybe bring a little more mobility to the offense at that position, I think they'll be into it.
Would you, unless one of the young guys takes a big step, like that's kind of the unknown is what can Lincoln Kineholz or Brown, like if they stay healthy, can they take a bigger step? Cam Ward not officially in yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we're already seeing reports that he's got multiple teams offering him $1 million.
Cam Ward in a Hugh Freeze offense to me would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So would Malik Murphy.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if Cam Ward stays in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, so you think he's gonna maybe go to the other side of the apple?
I was thinking maybe a little more side of the Civil War.
Oh, interesting.
Where does DJU go?
I don't know.
Did you say DJU?
Yeah.
Oh, not Mateo Uyunglele.
Right.
You're talking about
DJ.
DJ Uyunglele.
He's on the move again?
I think so. He's going to be a grad, right?
He could be a grad, yeah. I mean, he's not in the portal yet. Like he can be a grad, and he looked a lot better this year than he did when he was at Clemson. That'd be an interesting one. You saw Dabo offered an offensive lineman in the portal?
I did.
I was good for Dabo. All right.
You know what? Sometimes you got to take some losses for people to talk some sense into you.
We dragged Dabo for some of this position. So, yeah, I'm glad that we get to celebrate Dabo Swinney. He found himself a 6'6", 330-pound offensive lineman from the same place where Kyle Morlock was shorter college.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he went back in there. So, yeah, congratulations, Dabo. We are using offensive line was one of the positions where we said, hey, if you just picked up an extra offensive lineman or two in the portal, I'd have been able to help you out. So congratulations, Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. You are in the portal era.
And if he only signs 3 or 4 guys, that is like Clemson fans should be celebrating, saying this is incredible news, step in the right direction. Because I do think once he gets a taste of it, I think he's going to see that, you know, it's not so sour after all. Like it can be pretty sweet.
What about Dylan Gabriel? We think Mississippi State with him?
I mean, it makes the most sense, don't you think? Like if you're Jeff Lebby and you've kind of got to flip that offense a bit, bringing in somebody who's obviously very familiar with it and is a high flourish guy, not really the highest ceiling, but yeah.
Because I don't think he's an NFL guy, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
He's an NFL camp guy who's going to get a chance for sure. But yeah, I agree with you as far as his long-term potential. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback.
I mean, if you go to an SEC team as a transfer, you can probably get close to $1 million.
Which is definitely more than he's making his first probably 2 years, maybe 3 years in the NFL. So why not get a payday?
What about KJ Jefferson?
The
TCU
right scheme, yeah. Nebraska
reunite with
Kendall Briles.
With Kendall Briles,
and push Hoover to the side.
Potentially,
yeah.
I mean, like again, we think KJ's not an NFL guy, right? Based on how he throws it.
Correct.
Yeah. Like other teams that run that scheme that he had a lot of success in. Mississippi State, actually.
Tennessee.
And yeah, but like I don't think Tennessee. Nico better be ready. I would think. I don't know. Jordan can. Like KJ's from Mississippi. If it's not Dylan Gabriel, like, I could see him playing at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Or like worst case USF, I guess. If he wants to drop down, if Barry Brown hits the portal from USF, I know that's one that other schools are looking at too.
Yeah, that's weird. Where's Byron Brown from? Is it?
Where is he from?
Yeah, he's from Raleigh.
You right?
Oh, yeah. And that's where NC State is.
Yeah.
You know. Okay. All right. And
so
we don't think MJ Morris is back, and Brendan Armstrong's not. Oh, that's.
I was going to ask you about that. Are we done pretending MJ Morris is coming back?
I tell you what. The NC State's NIL was very excited to announce their commitment from Casey Concepcion, who is, as we saw in the last 4 games of the season, the offense, the reason why they were able to get to 9 wins. So if you've got KC back and, you can bring in a nice dual threat like Byron Brown, Robert and I could have some fun with that.
If that did happen, I actually think that Ja'Curry Brown at USF could make a lot of sense because like
leaves Miami quarterback go to the Bulls.
Right. And I saw Gabby Urruti a report that he is going to play the bowl game for Miami, but he's not a very good thrower of the football, but like in a spread it out, run around type system, that could work there.
Yeah.
I guess that his opinion is offensive to Danny.
Yeah, Danny's like, I'm out of here. Screw this.
D. Kane has had enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Go
Who
does South Carolina get? Like, are they going to need somebody, or are they going to stick with Sellers? Because I think they like Sellers a lot. Our chat's asking. I would probably roll with
KJ
Sellers.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if KJ really fits in what they're trying to do.
Brad Crawford at 24/7 Sports. South Carolina is the front runner for Arkansas quarterback KJ Jefferson. Should he enter the transfer portal? Sources tell 24/7 Sports.
Oh, all right then.
So that must mean they think Sellers is not ready to play.
Right.
Okay.
So Jefferson goes bridge. And also, how about this? Big, like dynamic in terms of being able to extend a play. If your offensive line isn't going to improve, having somebody like KJ Jefferson could at least give you a better chance to keep plays alive or get positive yards.
Yeah, like they're going to need to make a bowl game next year, I think, for Beamer to feel good, long term. Like you got to return to a bowl, I think. Where does Vanderbilt go? If I had to make a guess, Simpson from Alabama.
Ooh, Ty Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey says, which Georgia quarterback will transfer? Vandegrift?
We think Beck's going pro, I assume.
That's what I was going to ask.
That's what I think. Beck might go pro. So, I mean, if he has a good enough playoff, I think he's had a great season. I think that his draft stock could go flying up the boards if he's really good in the playoff. Honestly, I might take Beck ahead of one of the two guys we talked about all year.
No.
I might take him ahead of one of the two guys we talked about all year.
Well, look, as Bears fans now, we which one do we want?
Which one of those guys would I rather have on the Bears next year?
Yeah.
Carson Beck.
Out of the number one pick.
Oh, the Bears won't have the number one pick. They'll trade it.
So we're trading it. Okay. Yeah. If we want to trade the number one pick and go back, I can see that. Mm-hmm. I'm a Bears fan now. If you know this, at a solidarity with Tom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Monday night, Bud was sweating it with me. Yeah.
Yes, I was.
Is that why y'all were texting so much?
Yeah.
There's a lot of we do not have a lot of Monday night football interest in the Cover 3 group chat normally, but Bud and Tom were dialed.
Mm-hmm.
So kicking their way to glory. The Chicago Bears. How about them? Bud, I saw you send along a note. We got another some more bad news for the Colorado Buffs on the recruiting trail. Is this for the 24 cycle or 25 cycle?
24 cycle. So they lost their 25 QB and they lost their 24 QB in about 24 hours. So not great there. Now, I don't think that he was like a stud, so I'm not going to make a huge deal out of this in terms of they lost a generational player. But it is a little weird. But if you lose your OC, that could make some sense. So we'll have to see where they pivot to. Pretty good article out on The Athletic today, I thought, by David Ubbin and Feldman, and they quoted a bunch of anonymous Pac-12 coaches who played against them. And the Pac-12 coaches basically refrain was, we didn't want any of those guys they signed along the lines of scrimmage, which I feel like I've heard that before on. Yeah. So we'll see if they can rebuild the lines of scrimmage this offseason.
Man, nobody loves a victory lap like Bud Elliott.
Man.
Well, there might be some competition in there. I don't know.
Yeah, DK receipts have been good, man. What? You got Brady Quinn on HQ?
Yeah, I know. I thought Brady had FSU Twitter coming after him. What about the size of the class? Like that jumped out to me. They only have 9 commits. It might even be 8. Why is it so small, and how concerning is that? Are they going to make a run? Is it going to be used for the transfer portal? Like, does that tell you anything about Colorado?
Yeah, I think they're trying to load up to see what they can do in 2024. It absolutely makes me question if Dion intends to be there past 2024.
We're not getting you out of high school. We are just going to load up on as much portal as we can and go make a run for it, hope for better results.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing now that suggests that you care about building a program there past 2024? Because your actions tell me a lot about your intentions. Mm-hmm. Like, do you guys think he's there after 2024?
I don't know. I would need, but I have not thought about I've not
No.
thought about that. So
I will say no.
okay.
Yeah, I'd say no. I think we're trying to get Shadur to the NFL, and we're trying to get him as good of a team as possible next year to pump him up.
To highlight it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll see. Coming up on the other side, every single Wednesday, we take some of the biggest games of the week and we give them a deep dive treatment. It's Big Game Breakdown. It's coming up next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. If you're watching along live at youtube.com/cover3, then you just saw a promotion for another chapter in the modern rivalry that is Alabama and Georgia. Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, they are meeting. College football playoff implications for both teams in Atlanta. 4 p.m. Eastern time is the kickoff. You can watch it on CBS, stream it on Paramount Plus. Catch your boy in studio on CBS Sports HQ for pregame, halftime, and postgame. I mean, it's kind of a beast of a game. Danny, what's the piece of this that is standing out the most to you? How about let's start with Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, really strong. Vibes are great to finish the season, no doubt. After converting, the 31-yard Hail Mary. On Gravedigger. How do you think Jalen Milroe is going to perform against this Georgia defense?
Depends on if they can take away his run or not. I think there's two phases. You want to take away his run game and you want to take away the big pass. And it's something we've talked about all season long. 55% he's completing 55% of his passes of 20 more yards in the air. And he's got 15 touchdowns and 1 interceptions on those throws. And then look at the games where he's killed teams with his legs. It's like, oh, so if you can take away those things, I think you pretty much are challenging him to beat you in areas that he's not very good at. So I would expect Kirby to try to do that. And the thing that's unique about this matchup is that Georgia should be pretty good at doing the part through the deep ball. I think they should be able to defend him, but can they get I think their secondary will stack up nicely. I think they'll be able to do that. So I think it kind of boils down to his legs. Can you prevent the big play, the extending 3rd and 4th down conversions, giving up the big 30, 40-yard rush, for a touchdown? Can you take that away? That to me is the biggest matchup in this game is Georgia's defense against, and it's interesting because their run defense, their defensive line has not been great. That's the one thing that's different about this Georgia team in the 3rd year of this dynasty is they've completely almost flipped the script of what they've been. The defense was what they started on. Offense kind of was weaker. Then last year was probably the culmination of everything all together. Then this year, the defense is good. I'm not saying I'm not trashing the defense, but the offense has actually been carrying the bulk of the water for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about their ability to slow Alabama down because, it's not the same schematically, but as far as the areas of the field that they attack, the Alabama offense isn't really that much different than the Tennessee offense. And we have seen Georgia pretty much able to smother that the last 2 years. And I think you'll see a similar approach from them defensively where they'll, all right, Jalen, hit the singles. We know you can hit the home runs, but if we take that away from you, just see if you can hit the short stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's can they contain him in the pocket and keep him from running and, extending drives with his legs, picking up first downs and that kind of stuff? Because we've also seen Georgia's secondary has been the better part of its defense this year, but because of that, I don't want to say the pass rush hasn't been incredible. And we have seen the secondary kind of get chewed up at times because of that, not consistently, but you can hit big plays on them because they don't get to the QB the same way that they used to. So that's going to be a key thing. But on the other side, like you were saying, can Alabama get enough stops against this Georgia offense? Because this is a really difficult Georgia offense to stop right now because early in the year, they were really struggling to run the ball. That's no longer the case. They've been able to run the ball now for at least a month. They're very well balanced. They're very complete. If you take something away from them, they can counter and go somewhere else and beat you with it. They've got a lot more weapons in the passing game than you probably realize. And it's a really tough team to stop. So, yeah, it's going to come down to, you ready for this one, guys? It's going to come down to who can get stops.
Hey, but so we don't have, obviously Nolan Smith got injured before the end of the season, but I mean, this crew of linebackers, there's no Nakobe Dean out there. This is a big game for, whether it's Dumas Johnson, whether it's Munden, whether it's Sorey, a lot of these guys.
It's been Allen because Dumas Johnson got hurt. Like
CJ
a
Allen,
true
the
freshman, is balling for them.
True freshman's gotten a lot of time. Like this Chambliss, this is a big game for some of those Georgia linebackers, which has been a little bit of a rotation unit, some because of health, like you mentioned with Dumas Johnson. But in my mind, when I'm thinking about containing the big playability of Jalen Milroe, it's going to be about those linebackers being able to keep him in the pocket and not being able to break, contain, and give him those free lanes to run, because it is a group that I know, because we're sitting here we are being critical of a Georgia defense that is, big air quotes here, only
Trash.
like top 15 to top 20 in the country, right? Yeah. We're just so used to seeing that be like 1-5. And on third down, they've been very good this year. It is a big, like, challenge yourself. You can step up and really secure this SEC championship. If Georgia gets really, really, really good play out of that defensive front, then it might not be close.
So they have struggled with running quarterbacks this year, though.
So yeah. Auburn was able to move the ball on both of these defenses.
Mm-hmm.
What do we make with that? Like, we go common opponent on this thing, and
he was very good at putting together a game plan. That's what I put together out of that.
And we don't trust Tommy Rees or Mike Bobo to be able to be nearly as creative as it pertains to exposing whatever flaws or weaknesses might be on tape from those games.
I trust that they can. I just think that Hugh's very, very good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Georgia's defense definitely is not as like automatic, robot dialed in as it's been in past years. Like they do jump around some, they get out of gaps some. Like there are ways that you can move the ball on them that I actually think match up fairly well with what Alabama does. It's just going to come down to, like, how does Georgia's run blitz stuff work? Do they keep Milroe in the pocket? He's improved as a thrower. I don't think he scares Georgia as a thrower. I think he scares them as a thrower on the run, or like as a thrower, because Georgia has to play certain coverage looks that are accounting for the legs. I think UGA is excellent in coverage, so they should be able to hang with Alabama's receivers. But Bama does have some guys who have some real ability. Like, of course they do. They have the highest blue chip ratio ever, right? Like, Bama still has a lot of dudes. They just, their offense stalls at times. They were down at the half to Tennessee, right? They needed a miracle to beat Auburn. They looked really good against an LSU team that had all four corners out and their best D tackle out. Like, a lot of people have looked good in recent weeks against that LSU defense now that they lost those guys. So I think Georgia can probably move it I think Alabama could probably move it on Georgia some. How many third and long type situations can Georgia force? Because then I think it really does shift to a decided advantage in Georgia's favor. On the flip side, like, some of the stuff people have done run game wise to get Alabama is not exactly what Georgia does. So I'm curious, like, can Georgia just line up and mash it at Bama? Because I think Bama's got the best defense in the country. So, maybe I'm wrong about that. Like, certainly the times this year they've given up some yards, but like, player wise, Turner and Braswell are freaks off the edge. I think they got nice cover guys. The linebackers are good. They got a lot of guys who can play inside. I don't think Georgia's just going to like throw it all over the yard. They're going to have to make some big time plays one-on-one. Getting Bowers back probably helps a ton. Like, this is a game where, like, you go to him when you need him, and you probably need him a lot.
What team offensively had the most success against Bama in their backyard?
LSU
or Texas? And one of those two.
Yeah.
I was thinking, because I think the Texas game plan looks more similar than the LSU game plan. So like, that's like the big plays, like you were talking about, like, that's the recipe, I think, if you're Georgia, what their offense could look like.
Are those the only two, like, what we would call good quarterbacks Bama actually faced this year? Because, like, maybe there's a situation, because, like, Dart didn't have any of the receivers healthy when he played him, and Bama knew it, and they just disrespected the. Because remember, Ole Miss was like Harris and Franklin and the tight end pre-scoring were all hurt. There seems to be, like, A&M, it was Max Johnson. Auburn's Thorne, who we just talked about last segment.
Statistically,
like,
the only red numbers on Alabama's defensive profile from the year are Texas and LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And both those teams moved it on him. So, like, maybe there's a chance I'm wrong about Bama's defense. Like, maybe when they face a decent quarterback, they give up a lot.
Yeah.
Possible. SC quarterback play this year was really bad, especially like the ones Bama faced. So, like, there's some unknowns.
Except for three.
Was Byron Brown a top 5 quarterback that Alabama faced this year?
Well, he only scored 7 points on him, so
3 points.
Like, would I take Byron Brown over Johnson, anybody from Mississippi State, Thorne,
KJ,
Joe Milton, or KJ?
No.
Now, he's definitely a top 5 quarterback that Bama's faced so far this year. I don't know if he's like top 3.
Yeah.
I would take healthy Dart over him.
We're going to be doing our locks for this tomorrow. But before we move on, what's the overall general sense for the way the game's going to play out without giving away your pick?
Some of us already gave away a lot last weekend.
Well, Chip, I think both teams are going to try to score points, and the other teams are going to try to stop from scoring points. And then in the end, one of those teams will have more points than the other.
I mean, this line has been out for like 10 days now.
Right.
It opened at like 4, got bet down to 3, and then since then it's just been all Georgia money.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it goes to 7. Probably sits around 6. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned for locks.
No total thoughts?
I think it's higher scoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, like on numbers, I can't get there. But on athletes, like when you have this many athletes playing a game, a lot of times it's like, okay, big plays are going to happen because you have a lot of what I would call like touchdown scorers on both sides.
I think Alabama determines how this game goes. I don't think Alabama's in a position with the way that it is played this year, with the inconsistencies across the entire body of work across all 12 games, 11 of them against FBS opponents. I think that if Alabama comes out there and plays its best game, then yes, absolutely it can win. I think Georgia can win not without its best game. I think Alabama needs its best game. And so it makes it, you're just only putting it on the hands of the greatest coach in college football history. Try to get them ready to go play their best game. Be very curious to see how that goes.
To be fair to Alabama, I think everybody needs their best game to beat Georgia.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I say like Georgia can probably win without its best game.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that Alabama's got to jump up into Georgia's realm to be able to go toe-to-toe and get out of Atlanta with a win that would send, again, as I said last night on the Tuesday reaction show, 2 results cause heartbreak. That's all it takes. Alabama over Georgia paired with Florida State over Louisville is heartbreak. It results in power conference champions being left out and or the 2-time reigning champions with the 12-1 record being left out and or undefeated team being left out, which I don't think
of the takes, Chip.
What?
Think of the takes.
I'm just laying it out now, so it's not a surprise later. An Alabama win at 4 p.m. Eastern time, paired with the Florida State win at 8 p.m. Eastern time, it's chaos. That's all it's going to take. We'll see. Coming up on the other side, well, we got to talk about what Florida State needs to do to win that game against Louisville, and the Oregon-Washington rematch in Texas against Oklahoma State, another one with a lot of playoff implications. We'll get into those and more next.
A Game of Honor. The Army-Navy game presented by USAA. Saturday, December 9th on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. Let's start with Friday night. These are 2 teams that I think, while Washington continues to have a 0 in the loss column, if we're just checking the vibes GPT, one is shooting straight up into the sky, and the other one is just hanging on for dear life. Tom, how do you see this matchup going as they meet again? Remember, the first meeting, a 3-point win for the Washington Huskies in Seattle. This will be in Las Vegas in Allegiant Stadium. What are the big keys to Washington, Oregon in your mind?
I mean, it's no different than the first time that they played in my view of it. I think Oregon is the more complete team here. And I felt that way all year. And Washington won the game, and there's nothing to take away from that other than Washington won the game. But when I look at these two defenses, I have far more faith in Oregon's than I do Washington's. And I think Washington's defense is probably the primary reason why they have struggled to put teams away and they find themselves in so many close games. But it's not the only reason. The other reason is, and this started with the Oregon game, Michael Penix hasn't been Michael Penix for 2 months. Like the first 5 games of the year, he was completing 75% of his passes. He had like 16 touchdowns and 1 interception. The last 7 games, he's completed fewer than 60% of his passes with 19 touchdowns and like 6 interceptions. He has not had nearly the same productivity. He has not had nearly the same accuracy. He's become overly reliant on Rome Odunze, which I'm not going to blame anybody for doing that. Yeah. But it's like early in the year, I felt like he was doing a much better job spreading it around. And lately, I feel like it's become the Odunze show. And some of that's been injuries that have forced that. But I just think, I don't know. It's an interesting situation. It depends which Michael Penix we get. If we get early season Michael Penix, I think Washington has a very, very good shot of beating Oregon again, staying undefeated, and going to the playoff. If we get the Michael Penix we've seen most of the last month and a half, it's really hard for me not to think Oregon is going to win this game, and it's not going to come down to a 4th down conversion attempt or a late last-second field goal.
This line implies Penix is hurt to me.
10?
Yeah. I mean, like what can we possibly make Oregon and Washington? Like we think Oregon's like a 25 and Washington's like a 15?
No, I think oh yeah, maybe. Yes.
Yeah. Like it's hard to see Washington as just a 15 if Penix is actually healthy. He hasn't looked Tom nailed this. Penix has not looked right for a month. Either Penix finds a way to get healthy to get right. I'm not gonna say get healthy because I don't know that he's hurt. He looks like he's playing hurt, right? Doesn't look right at all to me. The completion percentage is just dropped off the cliff. Like he's just missing guys.
I got some numbers for you here. The month of September, completion percentage for Michael Penix, 74.7. In October, 60.3. In November, 57.9. Yards per attempt. In September, 11.2. In October, 8.2. In November, 7.2. 7 for me is very average. That's
Jag.
That is Jag level. And passer rating, 196.46 in September, 144.71 in October, 134.99 in November. All of the numbers split out by month just continue to drop down. It backs up what we've been saying without a doubt.
He was averaging, I think, 399 yards a game
in September.
And then now he's had one game over 300 yards in the last 4. Like it's totally different. I'm on the same page as all of them. And what's even worse news is Dylan Johnson was around with a walking boot at the end of the game in the Apple Cup. Like there's some rumblings out there that he could be banged up. I do think it's probably a combination of either he's banged up, but we know that there's been issues at the wide receivers outside of Odunze that have missed time. They're banged up. Like this is where, the college football season, any football season, NFL, this happens too. It's a war of attrition. Like who stays the healthiest? Some of that, a lot of it's luck, scheduling and just avoiding the big injury. And I think it's all starting to take its toll. The other thing is, you guys mentioned this too. Oregon feels like they knew they were the better team. And I had this take, and it's going to be a DK receipt special for you guys, because at the end of the game, when he was going for the 4th down conversion, the third one, I was like, because I hate when people go back and they say, oh, it was the right decision. Of course they got it, or it was the wrong decision. So like right at the time, I said, I love the decisions. And then I said, because I think this, and even regardless if they get them, the players love when you show confidence in them and that you have that aggressive mindset. And so afterwards, I was like, you know what? I think the players are going to respond to that. And I think they did. I think it was one of those losses that can be motivating, that they say, man, our coach believed in us. We got his back. I think they've almost used it as that turning point of the season. And so they've taken off and just been firing all cylinders, where it totally makes all the sense in the world, where everyone's like, who's the team you don't want to play? It's Oregon. I mean, they look like eye test. I mean,
Best team in the country.
right. I mean, yeah.
Second
But
Behind who?
behind Georgia.
but that's the conversation. If we're just talking about like how you look, Oregon has, for the second half of the season, been an absolute juggernaut. And I was watching the schools, the school propaganda, the cinematic breakdown. They get out there and like Dan. I had a mimic of Dan Lanning's. They're out there for clicks. You're out there for wins. Right after it happened, but the way that he, more and more that we've heard from Dan Lanning, more and more that I've gotten to see. I mean, he's still early in his head coaching career. He can motivate those guys to go out there and just be absolute dogs. Like Dan Lanning's Oregon is not like a flash and it's not a flashy team. It's not just the alternate uniforms. Like, that is a group that goes out there to eliminate your will to compete. And I am extremely impressed with the way that the Ducks have finished the season.
The one advantage, and this is sort of just psychological, and I would say this is any time, and I've mentioned this on here a bunch, like Washington's been in a lot of close games. Oregon hasn't. Like, if they can keep it close, I think they start to build their confidence. We already did this once, right? We did this in our backyard. We were trailing late. We had to come back. Like, you've done all this, and Oregon didn't. So, and that's the big question for me is, can Washington hang around? Whether it's, I don't envision a scenario where they're shutting them down, but can they score enough points? Can Michael Penix, pull out some heroics and, they get all receivers involved? Maybe Dylan Johnson's foot isn't that bad. And can they go toe to toe with them? Because then if it's a fourth quarter game, all of a sudden, all the pressure completely flips onto Oregon. Like, you guys are supposed to win this game. They can't blow this. So I think that'll be interesting.
We think Oregon needs style points.
No, if they win, they're in.
Yeah,
I want them with Nix for the Heisman, right?
Yeah.
I think
it's weird because I think Nix almost needs the Heisman moment because he's got the stats. He's got the year. But like in that case, like, it's not really style points for your, if it's, because I think of Heisman moments like of him needing what Penix did to him at the end of the game in Seattle. Like
2 throws to win the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you also want style points. And I think a lot of it, it's interesting because Daniels is done, right? He's already laid down. Maybe it is just, hey, my moment is go look at my stats, go look at the year,
I was gonna say, if it's just stats, it's not really close.
Yeah, I'm kind of the mindset that we are hanging a playoff bid in the air of the Pac-12 championship game. There are very few. There are very, very narrow path where Oregon could find themselves screwed even with the win. But it takes a lot of other pieces to also break in just the right way. Among them, Alabama over Georgia, Florida State over Louisville. Okay, that's all I'm saying. It's just those are the chaos scenarios. All right, let's keep it rocking and rolling. Let's turn our attention to Florida State and Louisville. Woo! This is in the Jeff Brom roller coaster. The Jeff Brom roller coaster theory says that you're going to get the best out of the cards. But do you think that you are going to get the best out of the cards? And if so, what would be? Let's do some research. Some opposition research. What would be Louisville's best game plan to try to beat Florida State?
Well, I don't know if Plummer's amazing, but he's one of the best quarterbacks that FSU's faced this year.
Whoa, hold on. You keep talking. I got to check this.
Think about this. I've thought about this a little bit. FSU plays a lot of man coverage, and Louisville can exploit that at times. I think Jeff Brom is, an awesome offensive coach, and I think they'll probably, try and most likely be able to scheme some stuff up. Louisville offensive line has been sort of a mixed bag this year at times. FSU's probably the best D line that they're going to face. So, like those guys on FSU's defensive line seem to be hitting their stride. They're really ripping. Verse and Peyton and Lovett and Farmer and Fisk and those dudes. So, but like I think Louisville can probably move the ball and score some, honestly. And a lot of it's going to come down, and this seems simplistic, to FSU's offense, right? With Tate Rodemaker in there playing. Guys, we said this on the instant. 250 yards against UF, like they didn't even get there. That's a terrible UF defense. So if FSU plays like it played against Florida, it will lose.
DK,
Let me ask you this. Do you think if Louisville had beaten Kentucky that this game's like pick or like Louisville won? How much?
No, I
think
think Louisville
It was 7. Wasn't it 6.5? I think before rivalry weekend, I think Florida State was 6.5, right?
Oh, and then everybody got to see Rodemaker, and now that's like a 3-point adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Louisville would beat Kentucky, I think there's a very good chance it's favored right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
based
on if Florida State did exactly what they did, and you saw Rodemaker struggle the first half. I agree with Bud saying I think you're gonna need a lot of points. I do think like it was, and I think Rodemaker struggled in the first half with speed, like just speed of game, everything, speed of the pass rush. Like we mentioned this, like we're live, like you're not used to getting hit. You're like, oh, I can make this throw, and you got guys whizzing by you because they can't hit you. Well, all of a sudden they're hitting you, and you're live. It's like, oh, and he got crushed a couple of times too. I thought that was exactly what happened. Then talked about like his quarterback slide. Like if you're going to slide, you need to let him know. And he's kind of going up high. Like I still thought it was a dirty hit, but he didn't do himself any favors by not, leaving that extra step to go ahead and get down. If not getting a first down or, touchdown, protect yourself. But those are all things that you can't get in a practice where there's not full contact. But I also thought he did a better job like settling into the game. I do think, again, it's very, common cliches. I think you got to have Trey Benson carry a majority of the workload. Can you get him running? Because this offense is, even when Jordan was doing it, it is a run-based offense. They want to be physical, and their best offensive performances, I think, are when Benson gets going. And he's kind of juggernaut that has to be there. And what we didn't really see from Rodemaker, we saw a little bit of run game, and I still think he's athletic. I still think he can run. Maybe they want to work a little bit of that in as well. But I think they're going to have to score points too. I'm with Bud. Thrash is pretty dynamic at receiver. The backs and Braum is he'll do some concepts that'll make you uncomfortable. He's going to have some man beaters that, Bud's talking about some guys crossing routes where they're pretty easy throws, and he'll have some deep, like he's going to come up with some concepts that'll put up some points. And then, or maybe it's just big plays. Like that's where Florida State has been susceptible to bigger plays that are touchdowns. It's not the worst to give up a 20-yard gain. Just don't give up the 40-yard touchdown.
Yeah, the things I'm looking for in this game, and you touched on a little bit with Rodemaker there, especially early in the Florida game, things were moving really quick for him. And you see that a lot in that, you have Jordan Travis, who's been playing quarterback for like 70 years at this point, who's very experienced. He's very mobile. He understands how to move around in the pocket, how to buy himself time. He just, he's never really rattled. And then you come in with a kid who has not played a ton, is not used to it, and is in a very pressure-packed situation last week. And he struggled. Like the game was really fast for him, and he was holding on to the ball too damn long a lot of the time. And that is going to be a problem if he does that again this week, because Louisville's got one of the better pass rushes in the country as far as pressure rate. They put a lot of pressure on you, and if he's standing in there and he's indecisive, he's going to get pushed into either making mistakes or he's going to get sacked and lose yards and put yourself in 3rd and long situations, which you really will not want with Tate Rodemaker. You'd rather have Travis, obviously. So that's going to be key. Can we get him to be comfortable in getting the ball out to the very good receivers that he has and just rely on his playmakers? Can you use Trey Benson to slow down that pass rush? So that, I think, is going to be Florida State's approach. On the other side, Bud, you mentioned it, Florida State runs a lot of man. I saw Jeff Braum last year against Illinois, which is a defense that ran a lot of man. And the entire philosophy behind it is, at this level, we're not facing a ton of quarterbacks who can really beat this. Like, if we get pressure, our guys can cover long enough to cover it because these guys can't get through reads like that. Jeff Braum against Illinois last year just dialed some stuff up and made Illinois' defense look like Swiss cheese for the most part in that game. And that is something that would concern me about Brom. But on the other side, is Jack Plummer going to be able to make those throws? Because Jack has his good moments and he has his bad moments. He also has, Jamari Thrash. He has good weapons around it. And the other thing Purdue did in that game was they were able to run the ball with Mockabee. Can Jawar Jordan find space to move the ball to kind of slow down Florida State's pass rush to help, give them more time there? So it is going to be a very interesting battle, I think, between Norvell and Brom, in that we've got to find ways to make Rodemaker comfortable. We've got to make it easy for him, but we also can't make it so easy that it becomes easy for Louisville to stop. And it's going to be whether or not Brom can scheme up stuff to take advantage of what Florida State likes to do defensively.
There also is this. Good, Ed.
I was just going to say with Rodemaker, I thought, he had the safety, which you could argue is a pretty bad mistake, but he didn't have the big. Other than that, he didn't throw the big pick six. He didn't the turnovers. He was pretty good with the football. And even the safety, it's better than a pick six, right? And then early, this has happened at times with Jordan Travis where he struggled. Go back to the LSU game, week 1, the Florida State offense was struggling. Florida State's defense got several, fourth down stands, goal line stands. So that might be necessary again, in this type of game. Can you get that red zone, fourth down stop, goal line stand, and then can Rodemaker avoid that critical big mistake? Even I think Herbstreit was talking about it throughout the fourth quarter. He's like, it just feels like who's going to make that big mistake,
There is some chance that Louisville's defense is not as good as its numbers. I've been looking at this a little bit, and last 3 weeks.
Yeah, they haven't been great.
Kentucky 6.2 yards a play, Miami 7.5, UVA 6.4. Those are not explosive offenses that you're facing, and you're giving up quite a few points and yards, more yards for UVA than points. But they all move the ball on you. And then I think prior to that, Vatek, which really can't throw, Duke, which was on QB3 again, I believe, right?
Hold on, Virginia and Kentucky were at home too. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
You were playing at home. That's supposed to be, you get the early stop, you force them into third and long, the artist formerly known as the Big Pizza Box starts rocking, and then you're able to take those pass rushers. And Louisville does have good pass rushers, and you can just pin their ears back in a third and long scenario and let them go. But no, I think the Virginia and Kentucky performances, and look, special teams also factored into Kentucky's 38 points there. But I think that's absolutely a fair concern. If I'm a Louisville fan, I am really hoping that my defense has gotten in the lab, gotten healthy, done whatever they need to do to be able to clean it up. Because if Louisville's defense plays the way it has in the final 3 games of the regular season, it will not win against Florida State.
It's one of the beauties of college football, or at least one of the things we have to acknowledge and appreciate. Let's just embrace it. Sometimes you get a team that has faced a bunch of opponents and their numbers are more about the opponents, right? Pitt, Duke without both quarterbacks, Notre Dame, we watched that NC State game. That was a Thursday or Friday night ball game. NC State's offense was disaster area at that point. Boston College, 6 yards a play, Indiana, 5.9 yards a play, Georgia Tech, 7 yards a play. People have moved it on them. I think they have some players, and I think that they know what they're doing defensively. The defense doesn't suck, but I kind of think both sides will find a way to score points on each other. These are 2 head coaches I very rarely bet unders on.
Yeah. All right. Mike Norvell and Jeff Brom. Let's see. Let's pull up
some unders.
Yeah. Right. I'm with you there. All right. Anything else on the Noles and the Cards? All right, let's go to Dallas. This will be noon Eastern time. Texas and Oklahoma State. The Longhorns, heavy favorites, 14 and a hook. If you're looking at where the real question marks are, the least amount of question marks are probably at Michigan, Iowa, but Texas, heavily favored. Best season since 2009. What could go wrong? Tom?
This is can Oklahoma State run the ball? That's, if they can't run the ball, they've got no shot in hell of winning this game. Because that is really I know Alan Bowman has kind of taken steps forward, but still their passing attack overall to me has not been overly impressive. Where they have thrived is with Ollie Gordon and running the ball. And this is a very good Texas defense. It's a very good Texas defensive line, and they are incredible against the run. So it's going to be a really tough road for them to hoe. And then on the other side, it's just, I mean, I've said it every single week for the last 2 months now, whenever we talk about Texas. If they don't finish drives, they let teams hang around. And if you let somebody hang around, then it only takes one mistake or one guy getting out of their fit to lose a game. So will we see the Texas that we saw last week that just kind of stomped on Texas Tech's throat and kept twisting their foot until there was nothing left there? Or are we going to see the mess around Texas? If it's the Texas we saw last week, this will be a blowout. If it's not, I haven't hedged yet.
There's only one team in the league that has like big time D linemen, and it's Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's if you watch Big 12 football, it's noticeably different. Like Oklahoma doesn't have guys like that. Oklahoma State doesn't really have guys like that. Not many of them, at least. Nobody else in that league has like multiple big time D linemen like Texas has. That's why the number is what it is, because Oklahoma State's offensive line has been much better down the stretch, but they haven't really faced teams that have big time players, you know? So like when we talk about like, are the SEC ready? That's why I think Texas is. Like they have legitimate D linemen who wreck your drive and they, you know, but like it's still Gundy. Like I think he's going to find a way to score some points.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know about win the game, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that it's a walkover. But I do think that the one team out there this week that needs style points is Texas. Like it would very much behoove Texas to score 50. So, you know, if you're taking 14.5 with Oklahoma State and you're hoping like, oh, I got a backdoor possibility too. Like, I don't know that Texas is going to stop throwing. They might be run up.
The other aspect too, and I think we talked with this about the Iowa State game, you know, Texas secondary is susceptible to the big plays, you know, so, and then like it gets kind of interesting because if you want to stop Ollie Gordon, you got to bring more guys in the box, put your secondary on a little bit more of an island with some of the corners. And so like, can you scheme it up? And the Oklahoma State's defense, their offensive line has been pretty good at limiting sacks. Like Bowman hasn't been under that much pressure. So like, and a lot of that's by, you know, play action pass is great pass protection, you know, like, so can you scheme it up? Like you're talking about Mike Gundy, good offensive mind. Can you hit some of those? Keep this thing interesting. You know, Quinn Ewers has looked great. CJ Baxter's looked, you know, fine filling in for Jonathan Brooks. And you know, the one thing too that does wear down defensive line is pace. In Oklahoma State, they like to go pretty fast. You know, like, so can you sustain some drives, get them on their heels a little bit? Then all of a sudden their tongues start dragging on the ground. You know, it's when all of a sudden, you know, this hole start opening up. It's definitely easier to block on the offensive line where you know where you're going than chasing all day as a defensive lineman.
Crap.
What?
I have to pick this game when we finish the show. I've flip-flopped 4 times in this conversation. I was like, Oklahoma State team total under. Well, they could scheme up 21 points. Okay. All right. Well, maybe you take Oklahoma State. But Texas does need style points. Okay. Well, maybe you take the over. But why would you take the over when Texas is bad in the red zone? I got no clue.
Here's what you do, Chip.
No clue.
Bud, and if you guys want, Bud put out a video on how to hedge this if you want to do it before the game. My plan is I'm going to hope Oklahoma State scores early and that Texas money line comes down a little bit. So that way I could hedge get a little guarantee more on my hedge than I would have to pay right now.
I didn't really want to hedge it, but like so many people are asking, like, how would you hedge this? I'm like, fine, you're right. Like the logic, if you're betting Oklahoma State to win the Big 12, is schedule and the likelihood that one of the two, if not both, of Texas and Oklahoma would be down. We got everything we needed for them to get there.
Right.
I don't know that Texas is down. This is like the best Texas team I've seen in over a decade. So
you know, maybe this will help you decide what to do with your pick, Chip. My sports book is not even offering me a cash out on Oklahoma State right now. They're like, nope, no cash out. You're either going to win or lose, buddy. There's no in between.
So do you think I would get laughed off social media if our YouTube short is like Texas, Oklahoma State? We're going Texas money line -710.
It's moved a good bit, by the way. I mean, it was 550 Monday.
Yeah.
But it stayed at 14.5. Like that's pretty much been rock solid.
It opened 13.5 and it blew through 14.
Yeah.
With not much resistance. I don't think it'll go to 17.
Whew. Crazy. All right. What about the rest? We've got a Tulane SMU game that has a lot of New Year's 6 implications. Liberty, New Mexico State as well. An App State Troy game is very interesting. Any other conference championship games that have your attention or a matchup that you're watching in those?
Do we want to talk the Big Ten at all?
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I want to know what your model has for this actually. Cause like the total mine spit out is stupid. I had to just do the manual adjustment thing.
Was it 32?
It had Iowa scoring negative points. So like, I'm like, all right, this won't work.
that might happen. I mean, I watched the all 22 of the Ohio State Michigan game because I had to live blog it on Saturday. When I'm live blogging a game, I can't watch it the way I usually like to watch a game. And just watching this over again, because I was trying to see if there was any kind of crack in the Michigan defensive armor that maybe Iowa could potentially take advantage of. And my God, like the Michigan defensive line against Ohio State, like they didn't cause a lot of havoc. They didn't cause chaos. They weren't living in the backfield, but what they were doing was there was not a gap available to Ohio State in the run game the entire time. Like I saw one crease open up and Trevion Henderson hit it and it closed up quick, but they took the run game away from Ohio State completely after Ohio State for the last few weeks had been able to move the ball on the ground. And it was very clearly if Kyle McCord can beat us, Kyle McCord can beat us. And that is a ballsy thing to do considering Kyle McCord's got like Marvin Harrison and stuff, but they were that confident in their ability to do it and they executed it. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, Deacon Hill sure as hell ain't going to beat Michigan with his arm. The only way they're going to do anything is if, like what they've done all year, is they keep running the ball. Somebody misses a fit, bang, you break off a 70-yard touchdown run. I just don't see them being able to do that in this game. I don't think Michigan, if they get a field goal, it'll be because of a turnover. That's really their only prayer.
Their first half team total under is 0.5.
And it's juiced to the under, right?
Shouldn't it be?
Yeah, I know. That's just wild, though. Like, that's unbelievable.
I mean, like, will Michigan have more scores than Iowa has first downs?
But see, that's the thing, because I don't know.
They will get pinned in the back of their end zone, and they will get to midfield.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, they need a fluky back spits out of there and just,
they need JJ McCarthy to throw pick sixes. That's really like they need Ramon Castro to make something crazy happen.
Well, or can they? The way they won is by shutting out opposing defense or opposing offenses. Can Phil Parker, who I think should be in every Broyles Award list, and he is, but I think he should be at the top of everyone's mind. Can he slow down an offense which is pretty banged up? Like, don't forget the injuries along Michigan. We saw the Zinter one, the big one on the offensive line, but Blake Corum's been out there blooded all the time. Like JJ McCarthy, we talked about him. How healthy is he? Like they've been on this gauntlet late. Can they muddy this thing up? Like, that's the only way I think this game is even compelling, is if Iowa's defense can do what they do against everybody else, but they haven't played the likes of this team. Can they make it ugly?
Yeah, I called Sebastian Castro Ramon, who is a former White Sox catcher. So my bad on my sports brain getting mixed up on that one. But you mentioned that the Iowa defense, like, what's the best offense that Iowa faced this year? Penn State. Penn State beat them 31-0. And Penn State is pretty much just like Michigan Junior in a lot of ways. So it's just, I don't know.
What's the second best offense they've faced? Because I think that might be like a more illustrative of the point. Like,
you're going to think this is a homer thing. Illinois is the second best offense that Iowa faced.
I think you're right.
That's the path to championship Saturday, by the way.
Texas just went to 15.5, by the way. So maybe it is going to 17.
Wow.
Look, Michigan probably doesn't need style points, right?
No,
they could win 6-3.
Michigan goes up 10-0 and sits on the ball.
I think so, but also I think it's going to, how many good field position opportunities are they going to have? Probably a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How many
Work it
possessions
both
in the
ways.
game?
Iowa team total under plus Michigan team total over.
So that's the thing. I'm staying away from the Michigan team total because, again, once they get up, they've got nothing left to prove to anybody. They're just going to want to make sure nobody gets hurt. I mean, we saw they've been losing, like they lost Zinter last week. Their number one priority once they feel this game is wrapped up is to get the hell out of there and move on.
That's true. Thank you, Tom, for making sure I don't ignore the great state of Indiana, which is playing host to Michigan and Iowa. All right, what other conference championship matchups have your eye in terms of places of intrigue, spots where you're looking to see something play out?
I mean, the AAC title game lost a lot of juice with the Preston Stone injury,
I know.
right?
Yes.
Like, I don't know what SMU's backup situation is there, but it certain to me, it feels like it took a lot of electricity out of that one.
I don't know that it did.
All right, please make this argument, because SMU has been, by my analysis, the best team more consistently in the American Athletic Conference than anybody else. But the Preston Stone injury obviously has like a 4 to 5 point swing on this line.
Should it? I don't think Preston Stone's very good.
Okay.
Like I watched a lot of SMU this year. I don't think that he's special. Like if I'm SMU, I'm portal hunting for a quarterback next year.
Tyler Van Dyke.
But if Preston Stone isn't that special and he's starting, what's the backup situation look like?
That is an issue because it is a freshman named Jennings, and I've seen him play a little bit. Like kid, pretty mobile, can throw it around some. I guess SMU schemes it pretty well. The real question for me in this is, I said on the show last week I thought Tulane had been playing possum,
and then they worked UTSA.
Yeah, right. Like they got a bunch of guys back from injury last week. So what is the true power number that you should be using for Tulane? That's really the crux of this game. Like with most of those guys back, how close are they to what they were at the end of last year? Because at the end of last year, I had a pretty good feel that they were like, kind of mid-low teens. Like, are they above a 5 or an 8 right now? I don't know.
Danny, what do you think?
I think Tulane's the better team. I just think they're further along than, and it's not a knock against SMU. I think SMU's had a phenomenal year. I think Michael Pratt's really good. I think there's a reason his name comes up. They're just a step ahead of where SMU is. I think SMU is going to get a lot better. I think they're going to continue to build on this year. But I just think Tulane's more physical. I think they're better at quarterback. This team played Ole Miss pretty tough at home without Pratt.
Right. Who's
a difference maker. SMU kind of struggled in their bigger games, against the bigger opponents.
But the Chipolytics have Tulane as a 4.03, but that is all cold. Nothing factored in to be like, oh, they're playing possum, or, oh, these guys are healthy. I don't have that next level Bud model going into it. But so are they a 5 or an 8? If you're going to assume that they were playing possum and not healthy, then the cold floor is 4. So, yeah, they could definitely be a 6 or a 7.
And the possum is probably overstating it, right? Like, I don't think that there's a lot of guys who Tulane was holding out who could have played at a high level. I'm just like, they didn't have their guys. They got away with it. And a lot of those guys were back last week, I guess. But like, maybe some of those dudes could have played against, was it Tulsa that they had like a skeleton crew out there?
It looked like from a game planning, play calling perspective, the switch had flipped because they were playing UTSA and not Tulsa. And the American Athletic Conference Championship was on the line. And they get to host this game too in Ullman Stadium. It's a big spot for sure.
Who is named
7 minutes on Tulane SMU?
Who's named head coach first somewhere else, Fritz or Jeff Traylor?
Well, I mean, technically it would probably be Traylor since UTSA is not playing.
Yeah, he ain't got a game this weekend. But where's Traylor going to be?
Houston.
I thought Cliff was the hot name there.
I think Traylor's the hotter name.
Couldn't Fritz get Houston?
That's what I was asking the question, because maybe that's and I think that's why he didn't get a job last year. He's like, I'm finishing this thing.
Yeah, our friend Richard Johnson, in his latest coaching carousel write-up, said that the word in the industry is Fritz won't talk to anybody until after the conference championship game. And so there are jobs that are waiting to talk to Fritz to see
like
how
Georgia
the
Tech
goes.
that was like, hey, we need to make a hire. And that's why we're sitting here with Brent Key as the guy.
Right.
Is Willie Fritz doing too good of a job for his own good?
Is he being too loyal? Is Willie Fritz being too loyal to his own program? Hey, and by the way, that Brent Key, who would have won the ACC Coastal with a 5-3 conference record,
it all worked out great for everybody.
All right. Anything else you want to, like, little notes you want to turn our attention to before we get out of here? I mean, we'll be back tomorrow to, like, doing a conference championship locks is not going to require the same, robust. We can lean in on some of that tomorrow, but anything else you want to get out here for big game breakdown?
Troy App's kind of interesting, actually. Like App's offense has been really, really good down the stretch. Like that'll be a real test for Troy's defense. App's run defense, on the other hand, I was
going to say App's run defense is going to need to have one of its best performances of the season.
Yeah, and that's going to be a little bit of a tall task because Vidal for Troy is like a back who I think has a real shot to, if not be drafted, like he'll be on an NFL roster. So yeah, that is quite the test for App there. But that'll be a good ball game to watch. It sucks that Miami Ohio didn't have their quarterback. Because if they had Gabbert, I really think like them and Toledo are pretty even. But
don't care. I'll spoil it. Can't trust Jason Candle with 7 in a hook. Come on.
I've been told I'm wrong about Jason Candle, guys. So we'll see. I have no idea what to make of Boise UNLV.
Oh,
I've been wrong on UNLV like every game this year. Like, oh, maybe finally they're good, and then San Jose whips them.
Rebels.
Yeah, Rebels. And then we can't spoil this. Like tomorrow, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, more of our thoughts from the gambling angle, as it will be the championship week locks, the conclusion of our season-long locks competition. Remember, bowl games, an entirely different beast altogether. So it will be the Bowl-nanza as we give out our best bets for those. That'll be a little bit more as we go. So this is it, the conclusion of the locks competition. It is Championship Saturday. Tune in Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow him at Danny Cannell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See y'all.
See ya.